The Ontario Reign are one of the hottest teams in the AHL, and today we've got some answers to some of your most pressing questions about the Kings farm team. We're going to look at all of that today on this episode of Locked On Los Angeles Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to another edition of Locked On Los Angeles Kings. My name is Sarah Vampado, the host of this show. I've been covering the Kings since around 2016 or so I've seen all the downs of the team, and it's exciting now to see the upside of this team as we move towards the future and have not only an NHL team that's in the playoff picture right now, but an AHL team that is absolutely tearing it up in the league. We're going to look at that today on this episode. Before we get to all that, though, today's show is brought to you by rockauto.com. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. So today's show, we're going to be looking at the Ontario Reign, which is kind of interesting timing because, well, like most of the Reign are up with the Kings. Obviously didn't plan that whenever I planned today's show, but it is what it is, and I'm excited to be able to bring you a couple of different episodes throughout the course of this week, focusing on the Ontario Reign. And to do that, I have with me on today's show the manager of content and communication for the Ontario Reign, Jared Shafran, is joining the show today to talk all about the Reign and what is going on with them. The Kings, of course, are in action tonight. They're playing the Colorado Avalanche at the time of recording. We don't really know what the picture looks like for the Kings, who's back from injury, who isn't back, what players from the AHL are going to get called up next. No updates on Tobias Bjornfot's status. If you'll remember, he left the game on Sunday early with an injury, leaving us with literally only Olli Maatta as the defenseman who had been here the entire season. So things are looking a little dire, and so we're gonna, see what happens. Tomorrow's show is gonna look at whatever happened in that Avalanche game, but today we are focusing all on the Reign. So let's get to it. Let's head right now to our conversation with Jared Shafran from the Ontario Reign. So it's an exciting time for the Ontario Reign right now. You've heard a lot about them recently on Locked On Kings, as we have been focusing a lot on our prospects down in the AHL. And now a large chunk of the prospects are up with the Kings because everyone on the team is hurt. We're going to take a look at the Ontario Reign today. And to do that, I have Jared Shafran, who is the man behind the Reign. Everything you're reading about them, with the Reign Insider and all of that, you're hearing from Jared. So we're going to just get right into it and hear what's going on with the Ontario Reign. So Jared, thank you so much for joining the show today. And I figured since you're new to the Kings organization this year, we could actually start out with a little bit of get to know you. So if you can kind of share, what your official role is with the Reign, what a day in the life looks like, what's been your path that got you to this place today.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Sarah. Always glad to talk some Reign. And as you mentioned, definitely a busy time of the year for sure in March. For me, my job is all things communication is kind of how it always breaks down, both internally and externally. So always communicating with different departments and, the liaison for a lot of our front office that's in Ontario, but I'm more primarily based in El Segundo, where the Reign practice and have their practice facility with the Kings. So I'm kind of the connection to the team for both internally with people who are in the Reign front office that might be in Ontario, and for fans to bring them inside, hear a little bit more, some news and information on those prospects, on players that are, whether they're developing to try to get called up or they're helping. In some of the cases, we have some veterans who are helping develop those younger guys, and just kind of being the eyes and ears for everyone on all things Ontario Reign. So that's kind of a good breakdown of very broadly what I'm doing. But yeah, writing a lot on LA Kings Insider. I am on the broadcast with our play-by-play voice, Josh Schaefer. So I'm on AHL TV, Mixler, our Reign Broadcast Network, and then just helping to produce other content. You might see it on the Reign social media channel. You might see it on my social media, but very involved in our marketing team day to day to try to make sure that we're promoting what's coming up for the Reign. This is my 10th year of working in hockey full time. Kind of been a long path to this point, which has been awesome. Love working in hockey, and it's been great to move up the ranks. Most recently was with the South Carolina Stingrays in the ECHL for the last 5 seasons. And before that, I was at Ferris State University. I was in the USHL with the Tri-City Storm in the USHL, and went to school at Northeastern. So another Northeastern person within the Kings. We have a few of them. And I was there for a while before I got going here.
So it gives Alex Faust a buddy to talk about, right?
Oh yeah, Alex and I have known each other for a very long time, and yeah, we definitely, as much as Alex is already promoting Northeastern, now it's like doubled down. There's more and more people that have to hear about Northeastern. I know Jim hates it now. Jim's like, oh my God, another one of these Husky people. He enjoys ribbing us about Northeastern for sure.
I love it. So it's a super interesting time to join the organization. Obviously the Kings are having success holding down a playoff spot that I think a lot of people weren't expecting. And the Reign are one of the top teams in the league, and they're also seeing some of the top Kings prospects in the lineup every night. So what's it been like to jump on board with the Reign this season at such a cool time for the franchise?
It's been amazing. I can't really ask for anything better. As you said, the standings for the Reign have been excellent all year. They've been about the second or the third best team in the AHL. They've been fighting for the top spot in the Pacific Division with Stockton for the whole season. So the games are exciting, and you're having a lot of success. So it's always good to be around a winning environment. And guys are getting called up, and they're making an impact. Guys are playing really well, and then forcing the Kings' hand almost. It's almost been so much internal competition, and I think I love the fact that the guys on the team, whether they're on the Reign or the Kings, there's so much competition there for spots, but they've all become this really close family. And Todd McClellan actually alluded to it a little bit last night. It's kind of saying that it's all one team, and whether you're on the Kings, you're on the Reign, you're playing top minutes. I mean, we've seen player like Samuel Fagimo has played on the Kings top line. He's played on the Reign's top line. He's played on the Reign third line. Guys have been such an influx, and I think it helps the development, but yet off the ice, I mean, these guys are just close. They're just friends, and they're all in this together. They all want to win games, and both teams are winning games. So I think guys haven't got so caught up with what role they're playing or how much ice time they're getting, because if you're playing well, then you're going to force someone's hand. And, Sean Durzi did that this season. I know everyone talks about him a lot as being the example, but, I don't know how much he was being considered for the role that he is now in. And he played so well that he forced management's hand. And I think that's so cool to see that guys are working extremely hard. They're very competitive with each other, but they're not necessarily at each other's throats either. They're friends. They're hanging out together. They're enjoying their time together. So it's been a great environment for me to be around. Everybody on both teams has been super fun to work with, and we're all trying to complete the same goal and just enjoying being around a great group of guys.
Yeah, it really seems like this group of players, particularly, just the chemistry is just off the charts with all of them. You mentioned they're all friends. They're a close group. We're recording this after the Florida Panthers game, where we saw a whole bunch of Reign players get caught up in that one, and there of course was people discovered that Alex Turcotte and Akil Thomas and Matt Villalta were all there in the stands to support their teammates, and I feel like we've seen that a lot this year of the Reign guys coming out to support, all of their guys once they are up with the team. And I feel like you don't see that a lot with teams. And I think that definitely, like you said, has really helped kind of move this team in the right direction. All right, we've got more with Jared coming up after this, but before we get into that, of course, it is the time of year as college basketball's big tournament is finally upon us. So, from all the latest odds, contests, and player props, betonline.net is the number one source for all of your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And of course, it isn't just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sport wagering needs, including information, live betting, and your favorite Vegas casino games. So head over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. That is betonline.net, where the game starts. You are, of course, listening to Locked on Los Angeles Kings, and thank you so much for making this show your first listen of the day. Of course, the trade deadline is coming up, and on Monday, March 21st at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, tune in to Locked on Fantasy Hockey's live deadline reaction show to get all of the on-ice fantasy and betting analysis that you need from hosts Steele Roden and Flip Livingstone, with appearances from our roster of local team experts. So you're going to get all of the trade deadline news that you could ever possibly want from Locked on Fantasy Hockey. Plus, hosts from across the network are going to be going live throughout the day and at the end of the trade deadline to get immediate reactions all about whatever happens on the big day. So check that out, Locked on Fantasy Hockey. We're going to continue things right now with my conversation with Jared Shafran from the Ontario Reign, all about our guys over in Ontario. And I feel like that brings me to a listener question that I was going to ask later, but it fits so perfectly with what you just said about the Reign and this back and forth with the Kings. Obviously, so many players have had the opportunity to go up with the Kings, either for like Dursey for an extended time, or someone like Fagemo who played a handful of games. What's the impact on those players once they return back to the AHL from the Kings? What are their kind of takeaways? Their motivation once they get back to the AHL.
I would say their motivation is even greater because they've had that taste and they know that they can play there, but they also know, well, they were sent back for a reason. And most likely the reason is maybe they had an impact their first or second game, but it's a lot harder to stick and be there for a long period of time. The Kings needed a player to come up because of COVID or an injury or whatever the emergency recall was this year. And the guys have been there and they've been able to fill in holes and they've been able to do some things, but how do you stay and how do you become a full-time guy that doesn't even get considered to be sent down? So I think there's a difference between, earning that call up, maybe playing in your first game, and then being able to stick and being able to do that consistently on a night-by-night basis. And I think the drive is there, and I think it helps the Reign coaching staff when they get a player back that they can look to video maybe even before the player was called up and saying, okay, here are the things you're doing at an NHL level right now. Here are the things that you're not doing at an NHL level. And these are the things you need to improve on. If when you get your next chance, you want to be there forever and you want to get that, you want to be able to stick, you need to improve on those other things. And I think sometimes when you're having so much success as a team, it is hard to pick out some of those flaws and areas that you need to work on, but then you get called up and you get exposed a little bit and you play against the best players in the world. And then you're a little bit brought down to reality of, you know what, man, I was up there and it is tough and I need to work on some other things. And in the AHL, you can do that. These guys have plenty of ice time. There's plenty of opportunity to try to keep honing their game, and they're doing it in a playoff race all at the same time. So it's not that the games aren't meaningful. You're not playing in games that don't mean anything. These are tight games. They're tense. They're games that you want to win. So it's a great place to develop. And we've seen that for so many different players. And a great example is Rasmus Kupari, right? He, had been up before previous. He started the season up in the NHL. He had a pretty good run, but he kind of petered out a little bit. He wasn't able to consistently contribute offensively. He got away from his game a little bit. It got stagnant. So he did find himself out of the lineup for a little while. Then he found himself down in the AHL. And it wasn't just a quick couple of games to get back up there. It was, a few weeks. It was a month and a half, I think, that he was down in Ontario. But he finally gets his opportunity with all these injuries, and he scores a goal. He contributes, on both ends of the ice, and he uses his skating as an asset. So I think that's a perfect example of a guy who hopes that he's never sent back down. He hopes that he's with the team the rest of the season and moving forward into future seasons. So we'll see if that's the case and, how he continues to develop. But I think that's definitely something that all the players are working on. And, when everyone, there's just not enough room. So somebody's going to be forcing the Kings' hand to make some kind of a move. And you want to be in the position where you're the guy that stays.
Yeah, I think Sean Dursley, like we've said, is sort of the perfect example of that. No one really knew what was going to happen, and now I can't imagine that lineup without him. And the Kings are eventually going to have, I think, hard decisions to make. But yeah, you have a player like that who has earned it and has shown that he can play in this league, and I think is a great example, for all the guys who are still there looking to come up. And of course, in the midst of all this, in the midst of all the call-ups and the injuries and positioning themselves for the playoffs, of course, the team recently announced that John Wrobleski wasn't going to be returning from his personal leave of absence, and that Chris Hite and Craig Johnson are going to continue leading the team. Now, I've had the opportunity the past couple of times I've been out in Ontario, thank you to you for helping set it up, to talk with Chris Hite a couple of times after games. And I've talked to my share of AHL coaches throughout my time covering hockey, and have really enjoyed kind of how insightful and forthcoming he is in talking about the team, and actually giving you answers to questions, and not just the kind of typical coach speak of pucks and deep. He actually is kind of giving a lot of thought to what he's telling you about the team. So what's your impression as someone a little bit not in the room as a player, of him as a coach and a leader for this team right now?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I think every coach's style is different. And I think when you're in a situation where you're obviously a leader like Chris Hite is, but that you're, still an assistant coach, you still have a shared responsibility with Craig Johnson. I think what the team is doing is they're just splitting everything up. And so that includes leadership, right? You have you have the absence of an actual head coach. So you have all these different coaches that are honing in on different elements. So, Chris Hite works with the defenseman, he works with the penalty kill. So if there's a meeting or a discussion with the defensive side of the game or the penalty kill, Chris Hite is your leader in that area. But he leans on Cameron Gaunce as, a veteran defenseman who's been in the AHL for 700 games or so, to help lead the team on that end. And then you have Brett Sutter, especially on the penalty kill end. He's on the penalty kill, so he's part of that leadership group. You have TJ Tynan, who's part of the penalty kill. He's on that leadership group. You have Austin Wagner and different players that have been in pro hockey for a while now that help him. It doesn't need to be a one-way street. It's a very two-way communication style relationship where Chris Hite's not barking at the guys. You can tell from talking to him. He's not someone who has a very fierce personality. He's not going to be yelling at people and telling them this is the way we do things. He's going to be showing them examples of how the team and the structure needs to be, and that's being demanded up from LA. He's saying, okay, look, this is the way that Todd McClellan wants to run the penalty kill or the defensive structure. And this is how we need to do it. And if you want to get called up, if you want to be playing high minutes, if you want to be part of this team, this is what the Kings coaching staff is doing. And what Chris Hite he's so well versed in that system at this point. He knows every little nuance. So if we get a new player coming in, if we get guys who are unsure about things, he is the expert at that system, and he can go over things with all those players. And the same thing to be said about Craig Johnson on the forward end of things. We have Craig Johnson, who is a leader as far as talking to forwards. He's played in the NHL for a long period of time. He knows what it takes to be a very good NHL player that's had a long career. So both with new forwards that join the group or older guys or guys who are trying to make their way up to the NHL, he's an amazing resource. But again, we have Martin Frk, who's a leader. We have, like I mentioned, Tynan and Sutter, who are leaders. We have some veterans that are fulfilling a lot of the leadership roles on the team because they've been there. Martin Frk has won a Calder Cup. So is TJ Tynan. They know what it takes to make it to the NHL. They know what it takes to win at the AHL level, and they know how to keep everyone on the same page. So I think it's right now the coaching staff is basically honing in on their specific areas. You got Matt Millar, who's our goaltending coach. He takes care of the goaltenders, and they've done such a good job this year of building out. They're calling it a goaltending department where they have, different coaches that are honing in on different things and the strategy of how you would run a penalty kill. Yeah, each goaltender is a little bit different, but they have a style of goaltending that they want to aspire to as an organization. So there are going to be certain things, and again, they're not going to be telling goalies exactly how they need to move, but how they read certain plays and what the best way is as a style to goaltend to backstop the team's offensive and push or the team's defensive zone play, how the best way to read certain things based on the strategy that they're trying to employ. So I think instead of having one voice that is your go-to number one leader, there are a lot of different voices that are collaborating, and it's working. It's working out, but it's because there's a mutual respect and a mutual determination from everyone, whether it's coaches or players. They all want the same thing. They're all on the same page, and they all respect each other's opinions and thoughts.
All right, we've got more with Jared coming up after this to round out, to complete our interview. But before we do that, I want to tell you about a great way to save money, get your car fixed quickly, and basically never have to talk to an actual human being, which is pretty much my priority in any sort of shopping engagement whatsoever. Of course, there are a billion different types of cars, makes, models, whatever, and going to any sort of auto parts store can be frustrating because half of the time they're not even going to have what you need, and all they're going to do is go over to their little computers, type some things in, and order something for you from the internet and charge you a lot of money for it. You can save time, you can save money, you can save hassle by avoiding all of that and going to rockauto.com, where you can purchase your own car parts without anyone having to talk to you or, be surly at you or just order things from the internet, a thing that you could do on your own. But rockauto.com has basically everything you could possibly need for your car. So why choose to spend 30 to 50 to even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership when you can go online and save money? Rock Auto is a family business. They've been serving do-it-yourselfers just like you for over 20 years, so they know the business. You can go to their website today, explore it, check it out. It's super easy to find everything you could possibly need to find the solution to your auto parts needs. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or your truck. Right Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. This is, of course, Locked On Los Angeles Kings. Thank you so much for listening to it today and every day of the week. We're going to finish things out today with the rest of part one of my interview with Jared Shafran from Locked On. That's not where he's from. With Jared Shafran from the Ontario Reign. I'm Locked On Kings. He's Ontario Reign. We're going to finish out today's show with Jared right now on Locked On Los Angeles Kings. Well, one of the things that is definitely working for the Reign this season is the power play. And it's something that listeners of the show and people on Twitter are always pointing out and always commenting on. The power play right now, at the time that we're recording, it's the best in the league, 27.1% success for the Reign's power play. Other than just Martin Frk unleashing that ridiculous shot of his on a puck on the power play, what has been sort of the secret to their success this year?
It's been TJ Tynan, because Martin Frk, he's got a great shot, obviously. You don't score 31 goals without a great shot, or however many he has now in his career. And specifically on the power play, he's got 13. But TJ Tynan is the one who makes everything go on that unit. The other unit has different things that have gone well for them. And the other unit has had some really talented players as well. Fagimo's been on that unit for a good amount of the season. Kupari, Turcotte. There's been some really high-end players that haven't even been on the first unit. But when you're looking at the reason why the Reign have the number one power play, it's because that first unit is so dynamite. And the reason that first unit is so good, in my opinion, are two things. Number one, I mentioned it, is TJ Tynan. He sees the ice so well. He has such a composure. And he's so skilled. I mean, he can get the puck to any of the other 4 players at any time. And he's so good that he doesn't even look to shoot. Like, he's not even really a threat shooting wise. He has a couple goals, but he's almost like, basically opponents have backed off from him so much because they're not expecting him to shoot. I think the coaching staff has probably tried to say, TJ, you probably should take a few more shots, but he is doing all of this without even really shooting the puck. He's just distributing it to everybody else. And the second thing, other than just Tynan being amazing, is really just the variety of options that the team has. And it's Frk, yeah, but Jared Anderson-Dolan has 11 power play goals, and when he's been on the Reign, he's been in a position where he can make a power move to the front of the net. So if Tynan doesn't have a read, if they're taking away the cross ice TJ Tynan from the right circle to Martin Frk on the left circle, if that's not there, he can go down to Jared Anderson-Dolan, who's usually open near the goal on the goal line. And then Anderson-Dolan has multiple reads too. He can try to take the puck back behind the net to force it to Frk. He can go back up top to what's been Jordan Spence for a large part of the season on the point, or he can try to feed it on the inside to Gabriel Velarde, another amazingly talented offensive player. Velarde is standing in the slot. So and there's no drop off. I mean, look at all 5 of those players are basically NHL players that the Reign have in those spots. And, sometimes it's been Fagemo that's been in Anderson-Dolan's spot. We've seen Lias Anderson most recently have success in the spot that Anderson-Dolan had when he was on his conditioning loan. But the versatility of, you want to take away this pass to Martin Frk? Yeah, no problem. We're just going to beat you with 3 other options. Gabe Velarde, for a lot of teams in the AHL, would be the number 1 power play option. Velarde's like the 4th option on that unit. So that's why they're so successful, and nobody's hogging the puck either. I think they're spreading it around. Obviously, there's a tendency to try to get Martin Frk the shot when he's open, but nobody's upset if that's the case either. Everyone's looking to, again, the theme for this team this year has just been unselfishness and wanting to win games, wanting to have success. Nobody is sitting there pouting because they're not getting the puck. They're just trying to score as many goals as they can. And if it's Martin Frk that scores 100 power play goals, phenomenal. That means the team wins a lot. But, it's not going to be that way because teams are taking away that shot. So we got to find other ways. Oh, okay, well, we have Anderson-Dolan for maybe a tip or maybe a stuff, and Gabe Velarde in the slot. You have Jordan Spence from the point, or, whatever it may be. It's just been that amount that's spread out and all those variety of options that they've been able to make it work.
Yeah, it's such an embarrassment of riches for this team, especially on the power play. All right, that is it for me today with part 1 of my conversation with Jared Shafran from the Ontario Reign. We're going to conversation throughout the week with him as we talk about some listener questions that were asked, all about some of the players to watch for, who's stepping up, who's been big surprises throughout the season. We're going to learn a little bit more all about the Reign throughout the week with Jared. Of course, the Kings are in action all week long as well, so we'll check in on them, see how they did against the Colorado Avalanche coming up in our next show. And of course, any other big news like, trade deadline news, we'll keep up to date with all of that here on Locked On Los Angeles Kings throughout this week. So that is it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Jared for joining the show today. Like I said, we're going to hear more from him throughout the week. But if you want to make sure you're following him now, you should go and do that. You can find him on Twitter at Shafreign. That is SHAFREIGN on Twitter. Go find him there and make sure you're following him to keep up to date with everything going on with the Reign. I'm on Twitter at Right Said Sarah. It's right down there if you're watching on the YouTubes. I am also, of course, the person behind the Locked On Kings Twitter at Locked On LA Kings. Make sure you're following me there. As I, suffer along with the rest of you with all of the Kings injuries, give you latest news updates, all that good stuff. So that is it. Make sure you're following this show, subscribe to it, hit that little subscription notification button thing so you never miss a future episode, and come back tomorrow and every day this week for more Kings news here on Locked On Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.